Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Big Bros podcast. My name is Jeremy. Welcome if it's your first time joining us. And I'm joined by my lovely friend and co-host, Ilan. How you going, mate?
Mate, I'm good. It's been a hot minute, don't you reckon?
Hot minute in particular.
Far out.
That's why we can't wipe the smiles off our faces. I'm so excited to be back, to be talking to you guys, and to be diving into 2024. I'm just buzzing because we've had 3-4 weeks off. We've been traveling, we've been busy, and feeling a bit fresher. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I gotta say I'm feeling fresh. I mean, I went to America and Canada, so it wasn't like one of those relaxation trips. It was way more adventure. I actually got to see the big bro himself, my older brother in Canada, which is great. I should have probably recorded a little bit more content when I was there, but truthfully, it was a great trip, and I still have the travel bug, you know what I mean? And I don't think that's going to be going away. I think I've told myself June, July, I want to do like a Southeast Asia trip with a couple of friends and, slum it out in like some dollar hostels. So I've got that travel bug in me still, but I'm feeling very ready to go for 2024. We've got some big goals and resolutions. Jeremy, I got to ask you, do you have any New Year's resolutions?
I don't know, mate. I think New Year's resolutions can be a bit concrete and therefore have been something that might be a bit uncool now in a way in society. You often hear people now, it's like, nah, I'm content with the way I am. It's a bit more like a woo to me type mentality, but at the same time recognizing, there are things to work on, but do things need to be concrete? Maybe not, because things are forever changing. We're changing as people, and that's all right. Do I have any particular New Year's resolutions per se? I don't think I'd call them resolutions. I think it's just areas where, I'd be keen on bettering myself in. I think one that comes to mind, for example, which I've been copping a bit of flack about from my friends recently, especially whilst also traveling, was not being punctual enough, being on Jeremy time, which is
I've never heard that before. Jeremy time,
which is something that it is something that I want to be better in.
How does Jeremy time work? So let's say you have to be somewhere at 10 a.m. Let's say. What's Jeremy time then?
Like, I'll never be obnoxiously late to something, but I feel like, in honesty, I do have a tendency to say like, I'll be 10 minutes and I'm 15 minutes away.
That's really funny. You know what we do with my dad? Because my dad is just chronically not punctual.
Yeah.
So let's say we've got like a family dinner or something. Yeah. Let's say the dinner's at 7. We'll tell him the dinner's at 6:30.
Well, there you go.
And it works like a charm because we know that if we tell him the dinner's at 7 and it is at 7, we're not even fashionably late. At this point, we're disrespectfully late. Yeah. So it's worked great. And to be fair, I'm also not the most punctual person. It's something I'm trying to work on myself. I think that's been genetically passed down from my old man. But Jeremy time, I'm going to start using that.
I just think it's a bit rude. Like, I think it's rude that I'll have a tendency to tell people where, I'll be somewhere at a certain time and then actually rock up 5, maybe 10 minutes late. And I will generally let them know, but I think that is like it's definitely a habit I want to unbreak and something I want to unlearn, because it's not nice, it's not attractive, it doesn't show urgency. And like, look, I'm a pretty chilled, laid back person, and maybe that coincides with the tendency to be a little bit on Jeremy time sometimes. But it's probably a selfish trait in hindsight, and it's definitely something I want to unlearn going into this year.
You know what I think of though? Like, you'd never be late for a job interview.
Nah.
You would never be late for like a date. Maybe you are. Maybe just to screw with them a little bit.
I'm pretty good.
You're good like that?
Yeah.
But when it comes to anything important where you want to leave a good impression for others, the last thing you want to do is be late, because you do understand that being late in a way it's disrespectful to their own time. So that's a good way of thinking about it, because like with your own friends, those closest and dearest to you, we still should be making effort. It's just like when you're in past that honeymoon stage with your girlfriend, you're still going to want to be dating them and treating them like it is the honeymoon stage, because that requires effort. Just because you're not trying to make a good lasting impression because it's not the first impression, doesn't mean you shouldn't continue placing effort.
Yeah, it's an effortful thing, and you're right. Like I've never been late to like, I would say like an important date, whether that be, you know, like romantic date, job interview, work on time, like something like that. But even if it is something like important, like I'll have a tendency to be there like on the dot, and like, you know, as the saying goes, on time is late. And that is something that I want to keep ringing in my head because I want to snap out of it. But anyways, that's probably a thing that came to mind just now that I want to fix about myself going into this year.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
What about you, mate?
I'd love to get abs. just straight off the cuff. I would love to get, you know, I saw photos of you when you were away, and, you know, not to inflate your own tires, I'm like, Jeremy's, you know, he's been looking after himself. You know, I don't know if it's like,
thanks, mate.
If it's the high protein intake, if it's the good consumption, good level of macro and micronutrients, and being a consistent gym schedule. But yeah, no, I'd love to have some, what's it called? What's the term? Cheese graters. Cheese graters. Yes. I'd love that. No,
don't we all, mate?
I know, but in all seriousness, that is more of a secondary thing. I think.
Look, like I think that's fine. Like I think that's good. I think a lot of us are too afraid to admit that we would want, like, call it a superficial goal or superficial resolution. Yeah, fuck yeah. It doesn't all have to be deep. It doesn't have to be so meaningful and profound. Like, you want abs? Fucking go get your abs, mate.
Exactly.
Like, chase it.
I also want to. I think another, it's not that I've written these things down, and truthfully, I don't need the new year for this to be like a resolution for me, because it's just trying to be better every single day, regardless if it's 2023 or 2024. But I'd say another thing for me is be a little bit more work-life balancey, in a sense. Like, I'm about to start my master's course, and honors, you know, with psych was just draining. There was no balance. Like, there'd be students who were able to sign off on the weekend, and I was just thinking, like, how can you do that? But if they're able to do it, I'm sure I can. So I think, and even for you, I suppose, going into, you've just started full-time work, establishing that period where you can rest and recover after you've just been with clients all day is so important.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's definitely a goal that would resonate with a lot of us now, 23, 24 years old. If you're starting full-time work, if you started earlier, later, definitely something. And even if you're in uni, it's something that would resonate as well. Like knowing when to switch off from your academia and switch on to your own time, your relaxation time, your socializing time. But yeah, like you said, I've just started work as a full-time physiotherapist in a clinic. If you're in Melbourne, if you're in the southeast area, head down to Caulfield Physiotherapy, and we'll fix you up for all of your musculoskeletal problems. Shout out there. But yeah, it's exciting. So I've just started work as a full-time physio. It's happened very quickly in a way. Like, you know, I graduated at the end of last year. I was away for 5 weeks with some of my really good mates, which we'll get into a little bit sooner rather than later. And yeah, got back, and within a few days, I found myself in the clinic, started to practice working, and far out, like daunting at first, not gonna lie, like definitely really daunting at first. You know, one day you're a student, next day you're a practitioner, and I'm in the room, I'm on my own, and I'm treating people, and that can be scary at first, but I also feel very confident and content with the environment I'm in. I've got like really great other physiotherapists around me, great people that are role models to me, and not just role models, but like, you know, we've got great relationship between us too. And I think that's really important in a workplace, because I think it just optimizes how you feel in those initial stages in particular, and you feel well, and feeling well supported it really goes a long way. It can often be overlooked. A lot of people can feel content with, you know, just being in an environment where everything is new in the workplace, and you know what, like you've got good rapport with the people you work with, but maybe you don't really get along with them like on a deeper level, or like on a level where you feel like you're friendly in a way. For me, I feel like I need to have that in order to feel really content in the environment I'm in. Like, because if I'm not like building good rapport with the people that I'm going to be spending most of my time around, like day to day, especially if we're talking full-time work, I just know that I'm going to not end up being happy and burn out.
Bro, what you just said there is not even that, I want to say, nothing to do with being controversial, but you spend more time with the people at work than you do with your friends as you age a little bit across the lifespan. So picking your work wisely is important, but knowing, and you can't really pick your colleagues. It's not like you have much freedom there, but your colleagues and who you work with has such a profound influence on your day-to-day happiness. Because I've been in jobs before where I actually didn't mind the work itself, but the people I worked with, fucking mosquito, get out of here. The people I worked with, I remember there was just one co-worker and she ruined the entire environment. And the thing is, you could be doing a job that you don't enjoy, but if you've got, people, you get along with and you enjoy being in their company, then it makes that work better, because then you look forward to going to work, because you get to share, you get to talk to people, you get to connect with others, we're social creatures, and this flea is really starting to annoy me, but you are in an environment where you can talk shit with other people, you can get along with them, and then you develop that colleague friendship relationship, right? And at the end of the day, for example, you've just started physio, full-time work. You're there to learn. It's not like any casual job for you now. This is your career. You're essentially starting to consolidate. So making sure that you have the right connections, making sure you have the right people around you that you can learn and absorb info from is so important. And if you can get along with them, that's just another added bonus.
Yeah, and I am really, really excited to be starting. And I think that's really important to note that whilst things can be daunting, starting a full-time job, starting uni for the first time, whatever it is that's new, can be daunting. But at the same time, I've been really excited to get going, and I am really excited as well now that I have started and I've had that first little taste of it. And, I'm already starting to be able to see like the impact that I can have on people as a physiotherapist, which is rewarding and which is the reason why I've wanted to do it in the first place. So it's been a really good start, and I'm really excited to see where it goes and to just, keep learning. But I think what was important for me before getting started was having a really good holiday as well.
Okay.
Had I look, this is similar to when I think back to when I finished school and went on and had a gap year before starting uni. This is it's like reliving that again, but at a different stage in life, where I feel like, if I've nailed something for a good period of time, especially on an academic level, I need to be able to say to myself, well done, mate. You deserve to get away for a bit, party, enjoy yourself, be around the people you want to be around, and just do the things you want to do before getting back on the horse to start working again. And that was really important for me, getting away for those 5 weeks before getting started.
No, it's very, very true. You need that relaxation period or the adventure period. I look at holidays in a couple of ways. You can either have a relaxing holiday where you're, chilling in a villa in Bali, or you can have that adventure holiday where you're doing mushrooms on top of a lotus tree in
on top or under?
I don't know, maybe both. On top, under.
On top sounds
with a
like
monk.
You're already on your mushrooms, mate.
Exactly. But the point is, you can have adventure, you can have relaxation.
Yeah.
You can have a holiday where you're getting up at the crack of dawn and getting 3-4 hours of sleep each night. But that could be as much of a mental holiday, not as much a physical holiday. But in the sense that as long as you kind of dislocate yourself from the environment you're around and you can take a break from what's going on, you are on a holiday.
Yeah.
And you're exposing yourself to a new culture. And I think you had a very similar experience, albeit I don't know if you did mushrooms on top of a tree, but you did
under one for that.
Or under one. But you went to Bali, you went to Vietnam, and you went to Japan.
I did.
I want to hear 3 learnings you have from them. They could be anything. I'm putting you on the spot.
Good question. 3 learnings.
If you're struggling, I can give you 1 learning I've got. And I reckon this...
You start us off. You
All right.
start us off while I have a think, because
Travel, all right.
Yeah, go on.
Travel in your 20s to avoid a midlife crisis in your 40s. And what I mean...
You were having those thoughts when you were away?
Not necessarily me having those thoughts, but, you know, again, I was with the big bro himself, my brother, and we were chatting about the fact that in your 20s, it's very easy to lock yourself down into a relationship, a job, a circumstance where you keep offsetting the fact that you have all these dreams and ambitions to travel. Now, for some, traveling might not be the biggest thing they want to achieve or explore. I'd say for a lot of people it is, though. I think we're quite fortunate, we're very privileged, we're in a country where, you know, our living standards are great, we can get money and we can use that money to travel. But his point was more so that when we're younger, we can offset a lot of things because we think life is almost endless. You know, life moves so slowly. But as we get older, it picks up the pace. And if we offset or we forego the opportunity to travel because we have something holding us back here, we then start to resent ourselves or other people for not taking on those opportunities. Then we get to our 30s and 40s and realize, fuck, we're halfway through our life and there's so many things we haven't accomplished. And we had the opportunity to accomplish those things in our 20s, but we didn't. Yeah. And the unfortunate thing there is traveling is one of those things that is way more complicated to do when you probably have a family and kids, you've got a mortgage. But in your 20s, when you're single, even if you're in a relationship, really until you have kids, even if you're married, it's fine. But I mean, until you've got extra responsibilities, book that trip, book that holiday, assuming you can. And one tip he gave me is not necessarily avoid the midlife crisis. That's not what he was saying. But he said, if you want to go somewhere, be practical with it. Literally see in your calendar, when do you have time off? When does your semester break? How much money do you have in the bank account? And become really practical with it. Because if it's in your head, chances are it's not going to happen.
Yeah, for sure. That reminds me. I was talking to someone the other day, and she was telling me how, you know, she's just been traveling herself. She was in America, she was in Mexico, she was all over the place, and she's just gotten back recently, had a sick time, and she has this conversation a lot with her friends where, like, so bit of context, we were just connecting really well on the fact that we were both avid travelers, or not avid, but like travel quite frequently, love to travel, think it's so good for us, etc., etc. And she was saying how she didn't feel like she had that with a lot of her friends. They didn't quite get it. They were more of the mindset that, you know, they went to school, went to uni, got their degree, got their job, and just been driven to make money, make bank for the purpose of really moving out, getting a house one day, you know, affording the items that they want to buy, etc. And that really was just different to her mindset. She was a traveler. She wanted to go and see the world, make friends, etc. And I think it was a really interesting point that this generation, our generation, making money for the purpose of owning a house and stuff, in my opinion, is quite prevalent amongst a lot of our generation, because it's hard to afford a house. It's hard to like find where that money is going to come from to get a house. But like, my mindset is that when you're in your early 20s and maybe you're doing your casual job on the side of uni, or you're just starting full-time work, the pennies that you're making now at this age compared to the pennies that you might be making later down the line after a good few years of full-time work under your belt is probably incomparable, right? Like, so you may as well use the money that you're making now in your early 20s. This is at least in my opinion, to travel, rather than say, you know what, I want to like save up for a house and then worry about traveling. I just think, for me personally, like, I've reaped so much more benefits from doing that. Look, everyone's situation is different, you know, especially like if their housing situation is different. Like, you know, like you said before, we are in a privileged environment where like I feel very much content still living where I am now. I've got my own privacy here at home, but yeah, I just feel like my priority has always been using that money now while I can to travel, rather than thinking of what if in the future, like prioritizing housing, because like the way we're going right now, like with freaking housing and everything, like we're all going to need mass inheritances in order to like actually worry about a proper mortgage.
It's actually a great point you brought up, because the casual jobs you pick up when you're maybe 18 or 25, before you've locked down that full-time career, you're working maybe 2, 3, 4 times a week, maybe more, maybe it's even full-time. But if you're on like a casual wage and, you know, don't have that full-time salary, you're very limited in the amount of money you can earn, especially if you're trying to balance that with uni. And usually that money is going to be used for, you know, expenses on the going out on the weekend, general things.
Drinks, mate.
Drinks, as well as...
God, the cost of
exactly.
drinks in Australia versus being overseas.
I want to hear about that in a second.
I've realised far out if we're talking...
Actually, yeah,
mate,
tell us.
about takeaways, that is one takeaway. How extortionate the cost of drinks, food, everything is in Australia. Like, look... Where'd you go
where it was so cheap?
Yeah, well, I was in Japan, Vietnam, and Bali. But like... Before I went to Japan, I had the mindset that it was expensive. Like everyone was telling me, oh yeah, Japan's expensive, be careful. I beg to question whether the people that were telling me those things are people that have been, or those are just people that are making assumptions based on what they think the country is as a whole.
Well, I think you look at Japan, you see this booming economy, you think, oh, you know, it looks so modern, so westernized, so, you know, in a sense, just... Well kept. So you assume it's expensive.
Beautiful people. It brings that bougie, high economic vibe, right? But God, like the prices of everything in Japan were on par with the prices of things in Bali. Like you're paying $2 in convenience stores for alcoholic beverages that would cost you $10 a can in Australia. You're paying like $5 at a bar for like a beer. If you want a beer in a bar, you're paying like $8 for like a great meal in a restaurant. You're paying like $1.20 a plate for like sushi plates at sushi trains that are just melt in your mouth type seafood. And you just can't stop yourself but to question what is going on in Australia, where I'm paying like $18.50 for some avocado on toast and then $6.50 for a coffee order that has more than 5 words in it. Like when I can get a full freaking meal, drinks, treat myself well in countries like this and be so content with it. That's a side point, but that's like, if we're talking about takeaways from my traveling, that is like not something deep and profound. That's definitely one. Just like, gee whiz, like the difference in Australia versus other places in the world is quite unfathomable.
I'm not too familiar with Japan, but the way I think about it, usually when certain countries have like a certain benefit, there's usually a negative drawback to other things. So for example, things in Australia are becoming way more expensive, but we have some really good benefits. Like we've got socialized healthcare, right? We have other services that are run pretty well, and you know, again, they're pretty expensive as well, but there's like a good safety net in Australia.
Yeah.
But I feel like in other countries, for example, like you went to Indonesia, right? And Vietnam, and the healthcare system there is probably not top notch, but like they're not first world countries. Yeah. So the way I think about it is just because they might be cheap in a lot of ways, there's usually a drawback. So another great example is like you look at Scandinavia and you look at a lot of those Nordic countries. They have incredible living standards, but the taxes are fucked in some of those in those countries, because that's like the drawback, high taxes. So your disposable income is less relative to somewhere like maybe in Australia. But then again, and I'm not a socialist or anything like that, so that's not what I'm promulgating. But the point I'm trying to make is there's always going to be benefits and drawbacks to any kind of economic country or economic situation. Where you put more money into one resource, there'll be less money invested into another resource.
Yeah, I just didn't get that vibe in a country like Japan, which just blew my socks off. I was like, this place is sick. And it was the one place where I think I've been in the world, seriously, like the one place I've been, and I've been to a fair few countries now, where I did not want to leave. Like I wanted to stay. I was like really sad about going. I was there 2 weeks and I was like, I could just stay so much longer.
Dude, you were there during the earthquake.
I was there during the earthquake. Yeah, was...
Tell us what was happening.
Yeah, I was, luckily enough, so we were in Osaka at the time. It was me and my 2 mates, Gabe and Simon, and I was actually at Nara Park on the day of the earthquake with Gabe, which is the park where there's deers walking around everywhere, and you can feed the deers, and they're beautiful. I thought they were placid. Some people think they're aggressive, but we loved it. We had such a good time there. Anyway, so walking around, all of a sudden my phone starts making this rogue noise that it's never made before, like this ambulance sounding type noise, and I pull it out, it's making a noise. Gabe pulls his out, it's making a noise as well, and we start getting this notification on our phone saying, beware, impending ground shaking earthquake about to happen. I think it literally said like ground shaking.
You need to get a pair of new underwear after
About
reading
to
that?
happen.
Jesus.
Yeah, we were crapping ourselves for the moment, and it said like find shelter, stay safe, reported from like the Japanese meteorology or something, or some like their bomb equivalent, basically, Bureau of Meteorology. But we looked around us and everyone was pretty chilled. Like the locals were really chilled. And so then I thought, all right, well, they're chilled, we must be chilled too. We keep walking along, blah, blah, blah. Don't hear anything. Don't feel anything. Call up our friend Simon, because we start seeing like on the news on our phone, like 7.6 magnitude earthquakes just hit Japan. We're like, fuck, like we didn't feel this. Like, did this happen? Call up Simon. Simon's in Osaka, which is where we were based. And he was just in our Airbnb, and he says, yeah, like I properly felt the ground shaking. Didn't know what was going on. Thought maybe some people were having a good time in the Airbnb next to us. But yeah, absolutely shook. Literally. And yeah, so he felt it. We didn't feel it, but that was interesting. That was on, January 1st, first day of the year. Then 2nd of January, the next day of the year, there was that report that 2 airplanes had collided.
Yeah, the coastal guards, poor souls, all passed away.
Fucking
tragic.
Yeah, so 2 massive tragic incidents in 2 days, and
the whole world
starts freaking out.
The whole world's cooked right now. The whole world's been cooked.
Yeah,
the whole world's cooked. Like it just is. You know, we're 22 days into January, and there's just you got to find positivity, right? Because you watch the news and it's just all shit. It's all depressing. Honestly, if you want to keep up to date with what's happening, but don't glue yourself in front of a TV. It's just it's going to give you secondhand PTSD.
Yeah, don't be an
it's
avid
tragic.
news watcher. Don't be an avid scroller on any news sites, on TikTok news sites, because it's just going to make you upset. So,
there's another resolution: less doom scrolling.
Less doom scrolling for sure. So those were 2 tragic incidents, but you know what? We're here.
You're here. You're safe.
And luckily, we were all safe in Japan, because some people weren't safe, and it was really tragic what happened. But I'm good. I had a sick time. And I would go back in a heartbeat. Really, I want to see it in the summertime. I've heard it's mad in the summer. So for anyone listening that's been to Japan in the summer, give us your hot tips, because I'd be very keen to hear about them.
Well, my girlfriend Rachel, she went in July last year. She said very, very hot.
Yeah,
I think she said one advantage is like you get to climb Mount Fuji, which is what she did, and she loved that. But yeah, I'm very jealous of all of you guys, because I really want to go to Japan. I've heard nothing but amazing things about Japan, and I've had friends who have gone for like a month, like Simon. Simon, this was the 2nd time there, so he knows the area inside out, and he went to South Korea as well. But that's the thing with me. It's like I feel like I haven't traveled as much as I'd like. Yeah. So the goal is be more practical with it. If you're going to do it, if you say you want to do it, do it. There's no one holding you back. Tell me, another learning from your holiday.
Another learning, back to that question. I think there's so many, mate, but like one learning that I always regularly come back to is how small the world is, and you really recognize that based on the conversations you have with meeting people, and that is a key takeaway in itself, is like, put yourself out there and talk to people, whether that's on a train, whether that's in a club, in a bar, on the street. Get out there and actually talk to people, because, you might have more of a tendency to do this if you're solo traveling, but it's very easy to get out of the habit of doing these things when you are with a group of people, because you get very content with just traveling with the people that you're with and not feeling like you need to go out there and make that effort with talking to other people. But we did on this trip more than any other trip I've ever been on. And I think that was why, for me, this trip was one of, if not the most enjoyable, fulfilling ones I've ever done, because the people we were meeting and how we were meeting them and the ability for us to put ourselves out there was like something that we'd never done to this extent before. And that goes back to when I started my traveling in Bali first. I was there for a week, and you know, you're at beach clubs and things like that, and you think, far out, like I'd love to go and talk to those people, those girls, those group of lads, like whatever it is. Doing that, big step, big tip, big tick. And like, we were in a group of like 4 of us blokes, and you know, normally I feel like I'd have the tendency to just be content with that, but this time we actually like put ourselves out there, had those chats with people, and it was so freaking good, because those connections we made with those people, we ended up like spending following days with them on our travels in Bali, like still chatting to some of them now. And it's like people from all around the world, people in Australia as well. So just building those connections. Had a time in Tokyo on the train, just started talking to the random geezer next to me. He was from America. He was from Massachusetts. I knew people in Massachusetts. He didn't know those people, but he knew that.
Mate, it's a state. What do you expect? US is huge.
Yeah, you know, but you know what? The world is small as well, and this is what brings me to the point of the conversation, was that like he didn't know the people that I was mentioning. He knew the towns I was mentioning, but he also mentioned that like he had connections in Melbourne, and some of his first cousins were from Melbourne. And funnily enough, those first cousins of his, I actually went to school with. So
what?
This is like
the
beauty and the smallness of the world, that here is me, Melbourne, Australia. Here's this guy from Massachusetts in the US on a train in Tokyo, and we've got this mad like mutual connection, which we would never have known about if we'd never started chatting on the train. And then we ended up spending like the rest of the time together, like went to the club, met his friends, he met mine.
How old was this guy?
Oh, like similar age, like mid-20s.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, and that's the beauty. Also in Osaka, we had some great nights where we just went to bars, and those were the most memorable times, I think, where you're going to, for us, like we were going to bars or just going to restaurants and just started chatting to random people, and then spending time with these people for the duration of the rest of the trip. And it sounds very like just cliche, and like people might be listening and thinking like, here's this geezer going on about like just chatting to people in bars and restaurants and making friends with them. But like, honestly, like, yeah, it sounds superficial and it sounds very easy, but like once it actually happens, it really makes that much difference to your travel experience. And for me, that was like such a refreshing thing, because the only previous time where I really made friends from traveling was if I was like either with the people I was with already friends, or we put ourselves in like a traveling organization. So we did like an organized trip, like when I think back to my times in America or in Greece or Morocco this year, it was like part of an organized trip. So because it's part of an organized trip, you're forced to like kind of make these connections, or rather making these connections with new people comes a lot more naturally. It's a lot easier. But this time, like in Japan, there was no organized trip for us, and we wanted to go out there and meet people and make friends, and same as in Bali. And that's what we did. So actually taking that initiative to put yourself out there and go up to those people was so much more fulfilling. And I feel like it's just, again, another key takeaway that will just do me and people so much good for when they get back home, get back to Melbourne, whether that's like cold approaching people on the street, in a bar, asking someone out at a cafe, whatever it might be. It's just another layer of confidence that it gives you. And it's it's fun after all. It's fun. So yeah, we're talking about takeaways. That's one that I like to come back to as well.
I love that so much because one of the biggest, most fulfilling parts of traveling is learning about and meeting the people that you've never met before, but you learn about their culture, you learn about how they do things differently to us. Then you find some common ground with those people. You find that you like the same soccer team as they do, you like similar foods to they do. Maybe and obviously they might have different recipes for certain foods and whatnot, but the point remains is you meet new people. I think in your 20s especially, building those connections, friends or not, colleagues or not, is so important just for your pure baseline conversational skills, for your levels of confidence, for your ability to be like, go up to a random person, right, when you're on holiday and be like, I'm really interested by the convo you're talking about, or the chat, or the topic you're chatting about, whatever, and just hitting it off with them. And maybe you don't get along with them, but who cares? You're still exercising your conversational skills, because you're so right. We can get so insulated by the groups we're in, by the people we're with, that we just tell ourselves, who cares? We don't need to speak to anyone else. But there is so much benefit to be gained by just putting yourself in a situation where you can chat to someone new. You know, you might chat to a girl. That girl could be your wife in 10 years, holiday or not. You just don't know where it can lead to if you just put yourself in a situation where you're happy to speak to someone new. And I love that. I really do. I'm glad you spoke about that, because I think that's a very underrated aspect that people don't really chat about.
Absolutely. And one thing that comes to mind with that is, you know, because I've spent a lot of time talking about why this is so good. But if I'm going to say like how we did it and how I would recommend you guys to do it, if, you know, you guys are traveling and you know, you want to be doing these things, but you're not sure like how to actually go about doing it, is like, we generally just started by like going up to someone and like complimenting them on what they were wearing or something. And like, look, in Japan, that was very easy. And that was one of the things that I loved about the place, is like, your head is on a swivel because everyone looks incredible. Everyone is so well kept. People look like they're like they really take pride in looking after themselves. So we would go up to people, and like girls, guys, whatever, and say like, love your jacket, love your hair, love those shoes. And you just start like that. And then next thing it's like, where are you from? What's your name? What are you doing? What are you doing tonight? Etc. etc. And there you go. So honestly, half the time it just starts off with a compliment or cracking a joke. And the thing is, like, a lot of people, honestly, I don't reckon give a shit how you start off. It's just about starting off. They just want to build that connection just like you do. But it's just nerve-wracking to start talking to a stranger, right? So don't be so fixated on what it is you say. Just say it. So, but for us, it was things just like just complimenting them, whatever we thought was cool about them, or what vibe we were getting from them, just complimenting on that, or finding a common ground in what you were doing, whether it was like the bar you're in or the restaurant you're at. Just finding the common ground was able to spark that conversation, and that's all that people are looking for at the end of the day, really. And you mentioned something before, which also sparked another memory, was sometimes there might not often be common ground, like especially if you are traveling and you're from one country and someone else is from another country, you might not have like the same values, the same language, and common ground might be really hard to find. But when you are able to find it, even if it's through something superficial, it builds like such a long lasting memory and connection that is like it's so fulfilling. And we had that a lot in Vietnam, where a lot of the locals don't speak very, very good English. And we did a tour through the Hajiang Loop. Call it a tour. It's a motorbike loop. You jump on the back of motorbikes. You ride around the mountains for 4 days. It was freaking epic. One of the sickest things I've ever done. And we each had, so Simon, Gabe and I, we each had like our own drivers driving us around the mountains. And these guys didn't really speak any English whatsoever. But after 4 days, we built like such an unbreakable connection with them, which was so powerful. Like, got sick photos with them, have their phone numbers. Like, I still like send flicks to my driver, like here and there, ask him how he's going. And we had some like beautiful memories where like he had a boombox speaker and he would just ask me to play tunes on the back. So like here I am just bumping tech and like garage music, and he's vibing and just like having as much fun as what I'm having. And for us, I think for us, what the common ground was just the music, really, like vibing to the music together. And that's what built our connection more than anything, because like we didn't have that language connection because we couldn't really have chats with one another, but like just the vibe of the music and the vibe of feeling good amongst that and in the atmosphere we were in built that connection. And you're able to express it through different ways rather than just language the whole time.
That's absolutely amazing. And that shows humans are social creatures. We have the ability to connect, even if it means connecting with someone who doesn't speak the same language as you, and with people that you might have very, very limited common ground with.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, my holiday, like, I can't say it was the same ilk as your holiday, in the sense that it wasn't as adventurous, because it was very much seeing a bit of family. So I went with Rachel to New York, went to see my brother in Canada who lives up there. But I just remember walking in New York, and there was like one day where I was like, because something I thought about is the whole idea of living abroad. Would you live abroad?
It would have to be very good. I love Melbourne. I love Australia. I think Australia is home for me, at least for the long term, when I'm thinking about like kids, raising family, etc. There's a tendency to sometimes think the grass is greener on the other side, which we've spoken about previously. I would play with the idea for a short period of time, perhaps, but long term, I think it would have to be very good for me to move out of Australia.
No, long term, I'd love to, obviously have my family in Australia and raise my family here. But the point I'm trying to make is, in your 20s, when you do have those limited responsibilities, having a job maybe that allows you to work overseas in a city you really want to live in. I had that with New York, and there was something about it. I mean, it was my second time there. I've been lucky enough to go when I was younger. And, a lot of people who may live in New York who might be tuning into this podcast saying, bro, like, what are you talking about? There's so many shitty elements. But there was something about, I think I was walking in Manhattan in like, maybe more of the bougie area. So let a boy dream.
Yeah.
But like Greenwich Village, it's just, for anyone who's been there, just something nice about it. I felt very content. There was a day where I was walking with Rachel, did the Brooklyn Bridge, did it like, every day was like 25,000 steps each day. We were just knackered by the end of it. But there was just something about walking there and just being there, and you just get this like feeling of contentment. And I don't get that feeling often. And I wonder if anyone who's listening to this may have had that feeling before. Like they go somewhere and it's their happy place. It's similar to that feeling of like feeling like you're in your happy place.
Entertainer.
Yeah.
Then.
And it was just, I was very present. And I think that's what it was. Like when you're on holiday, the places that make you feel the most present are the most special places, because they're the places that you'll have the most lasting memories. You're not going on your phone necessarily to take a flick, but you're absorbing everything. You're enjoying the air around you. And mind you, it was freezing there, although they said it was their warmest winter. But it was cold. It was great. Like, you're in awe those first few days when you start traveling. You're running on a bit of adrenaline.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm entertaining that idea of living somewhere is because, and again, like this is all coming from like I had a chat with my brother, which is he moved to Toronto, and he said after about a week, you have one layer, like an onion that you know about that city. You spend 3 weeks there and you unlock another layer. So you notice things that you didn't notice in your first week. Then you live there for a month and then it unlocks another layer and so forth. And I think that's a really cool way to travel, because I feel like when most people travel, it's very hard practically to stay somewhere for a prolonged period of time. So you never really get the full experience. Yeah. You don't actually, because even being in a place for 1 month doesn't really allow you that privilege of getting to see it in a few different levels. But I feel like, I don't know, just when I was in New York, I really had that. I really loved Canada as well. Some elements are very similar to Australia, I've got to say. There were very similar elements, just people are really kind. Beautiful French Canada, so Quebec City. Oh my God. Like so beautiful. Just again, in awe. You're walking around there. The architecture is reminiscent of like France 100 years ago. So it's a very different holiday to what you had. Mine was very much more like, I wouldn't say as adventurous, very much saying family and being a tourist. But irrespective, just like I loved it. It was
Beautiful.
sick.
Yeah, mate.
But
Every holiday is different.
and it entertained the whole thought for me of just, wanting to have the ability to live abroad in my 20s, even if it's
Maybe you
for a
will.
short period of time. But yeah, I don't know.
Something
That's
to
definitely a
think
learn.
about.
Yeah, that was definitely a learning of mine. And I think as well is enjoying the small moments of discomfort. For example, like you're on a long haul flight and you're just exhausted and you want a bed to sleep in because you're slugging away in economy class. You're agitated. You're just like, you're jet lagged. And I just think it's like those moments where you just sit back and be like, you're on holiday. Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
Who cares?
Your biggest problem to worry about is what you're eating for breakfast.
Exactly. And you might be a little bit constipated because that's what happens when you travel. So eat your fiber. But honestly, like as soon as I got back, I was like, okay, when's my next holiday? When am I getting my timetable for masters so I can like start locking in a month when I can travel? Something to look forward to.
Mad. Love it. On that note, hope everyone has had a mad break. We certainly did. And we can't share your travel stories with us. We would love to hear your travel stories if you were able to get away over this time period. And otherwise, we hope you've all had a mad start to 2024, a great start. And we're so excited to jump into this year. So we can't wait to do it alongside you guys too.
Definitely. And, we're going to have a good year this year. I'm very excited about some of the topics Jeremy and I have planned for this year. Hopefully some cool guests as well. So we're very keen to bring that all to you guys. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you did, why not share it with a friend? Rate us 5 stars on Spotify. And hope you all have a happy Tuesday and a happy rest of your January.
See you guys next time.